South Africa is one of the most sought-after countries in Africa. Thousands of people flock to the place from different parts of the continent to settle down in the Rainbow Nation looking for greener pastures.
South Africa, a land of extraordinary diversity and rich history, is a beacon of hope that overcame apartheid's cruel segregation. Yet in recent years, a dark shadow has crept across this nation: xenophobia. Immigrants, once welcomed for their contributions, now face hate and violence. How did we get here? Why does a country built on unity continue to grapple with division? The answer is complex, but one thing is clear. To move forward, South Africa must confront the pain of its past and the tension of its present. Welcome back to our channel. If you're new, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. Now let's head to South Africa. To understand why xenophobia persists in South Africa, we must look back at its painful history. For nearly 50 years, the country was ruled by apartheid, a system designed to divide people along racial lines, denying millions of Black South Africans basic rights and opportunities. The repercussions of this brutal era are still felt today. Apartheid's policies created deep social and economic divides. While the white minority controlled vast resources, the Black majority lived in poverty, forced into overcrowded townships with limited access to education, healthcare, or employment. This system did more than separate people by skin color. It instilled a mindset of us versus them, sowing distrust and resentment across racial groups. When apartheid ended in 1994, South Africa emerged from one of the most oppressive systems in history. Nelson Mandela's election as president marked the beginning of a new era, where the nation vowed to heal and build a rainbow nation of unity and equality. Yet the end of apartheid didn't immediately erase the wounds. Despite political freedom, millions of South Africans still faced economic hardship. The promise of equality remained elusive for many, especially the Black and colored communities that had suffered the most under apartheid. In the years that followed, South Africa's transition to democracy brought remarkable political changes, but the economic inequalities endured. Today, the country is one of the most unequal in the world, with a staggering gap between the rich and the poor, and between the Black majority and the white minority. As the promise of equality remained unfulfilled, frustrations mounted. In this context, immigration became a flashpoint. Millions of people from neighboring African nations flocked to South Africa, seeking refuge from war, poverty, and political instability. Many found work in the informal sector, contributing to the economy. However, their presence triggered a complex mixture of resentment and competition from South Africans who were struggling to find jobs and resources. The legacy of apartheid, combined with continued economic disparity, has created fertile ground for xenophobic sentiments. Immigrants, often blamed for taking scarce jobs or stealing resources, became convenient scapegoats for the country's challenges. This historical context sets the stage for understanding why xenophobia continues to plague South Africa today, even in a country that fought so hard for freedom and unity. South Africa is an economic powerhouse in Africa, with one of the continent's most developed infrastructures and industries. But beneath this glossy surface lies an economic crisis, one that has deeply affected millions. The promise of prosperity in a democratic South Africa has failed to materialize for far too many. South Africa's economic landscape is a complex tapestry woven from its apartheid past and the aspirations of its democratic present. Despite the end of apartheid over 3 decades ago, the nation continues to grapple with profound economic challenges that fuel social tensions, including xenophobia. In 2023, South Africa's GDP per capita was approximately $6,253, reflecting a 7.59% decline from the previous year. This downturn underscores the persistent economic hurdles the country faces. The country's unemployment rate stood at a staggering 34.9%. The situation is even more dire for young South Africans, where the youth unemployment rate soars above 60%. Unemployment among young people is not just a statistic. It's a daily struggle for survival. In the third quarter of 2024, the official unemployment rate decreased to 32.1%, down from 33.5% in the second quarter. This marks the first decline in a year, attributed to increased employment across 6 of the 10 industries monitored by Statistics South Africa, with the community and social services sector noting the highest job gains. With an economy that is growing at a sluggish rate, there simply aren't enough jobs to go around. And for those who do manage to find work, wages remain low, especially in the informal sector. Enter the immigrant population, which has played a crucial role in South Africa's informal economy. Migrants, especially from countries like Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Somalia, have filled jobs in sectors that South Africans often overlook: construction, cleaning, and street vending. According to the latest estimates, about 3.6 million foreign-born people reside in South Africa. Many of them work in the informal sector, contributing billions to the economy. But while these immigrants are keeping South Africa's informal economy afloat, their presence is also a source of contention. South Africans struggling to find work in a stagnant economy have begun to view these migrants as competitors, taking jobs, lowering wages, and contributing to resource shortages. As the gap between rich and poor continues to widen, resentment has festered, and xenophobia has become a convenient scapegoat for the country's economic woes. It's easy to blame immigrants for taking away opportunities, but the reality is far more complicated. The root causes of South Africa's economic struggles, corruption, ineffective policies, and a history of inequality, are often ignored in favor of blaming vulnerable foreign nationals. The economic frustrations of locals are often channeled into violence, leading to the targeting of immigrant-owned businesses, homes, and even lives. Yet the real issue isn't immigrants. The issue is the failure of South Africa's government to address the deep-rooted economic inequality that affects its citizens. For example, despite being one of the most advanced countries on the continent, South Africa's income inequality is the highest in the world, according to the World Bank. The Gini coefficient, a measure of income inequality, stands at 0.63, significantly higher than most African nations. The lack of economic opportunities has created an environment ripe for resentment. This frustration has spilled over into xenophobia, with foreigners being scapegoated for the failures of a system that was designed to benefit the few at the top. South Africa's economic system still mirrors the unequal distribution of wealth that existed under apartheid, with the rich, predominantly white, holding the lion's share of resources, while the black majority continues to struggle. Even though South Africa's democratic transition was hailed as a victory for all, the gap between the country's rich and poor has only grown wider. The top 10% of South Africa's population controls more than 70% of the country's wealth, while the bottom 50% live in poverty. These vast disparities are felt daily by millions of South Africans, many of whom are turning their frustrations towards immigrants. The economic struggles faced by South Africans are not unique, but the way they manifest in xenophobic violence and prejudice makes South Africa's situation especially troubling. The question remains, can the country ever overcome these divisions, or will the cycle of blame and resentment continue? Politics and media have played a pivotal role in shaping public perceptions of immigrants in South Africa. In times of economic strain and social unrest, political leaders and media outlets often turn to scapegoating, using immigrants as a convenient target for frustration and fear. Politicians, particularly during election cycles, have sometimes capitalized on growing discontent by stoking xenophobic sentiments. In 2008, the country saw some of its most violent xenophobic attacks, and in the years that followed, populist leaders and certain political factions used anti-immigrant rhetoric to rally support. Prominent political figures have been accused of perpetuating stereotypes of immigrants as job thieves and criminals, further fueling resentment. The media, too, has had a hand in amplifying these tensions. Sensationalized headlines and skewed portrayals of immigrants have stoked fears, framing them as a threat to South African livelihoods and security. Stories focusing on crimes committed by foreigners, often exaggerated or lacking context, serve to reinforce negative stereotypes. A 2015 study found that nearly 70% of South African media coverage about migrants was negative, portraying them as responsible for social issues rather than contributors to the economy. In the digital age, social media has become a powerful tool in the spread of xenophobia. platforms like Twitter, Facebook, and WhatsApp allow misinformation to spread rapidly, often with little regulation. Xenophobic groups use these platforms to organize, share inflammatory content, and spread fear, further polarizing communities and making it harder to foster understanding between locals and immigrants. Yet not all political discourse is harmful. Many leaders, activists, and media organizations are using their platforms to promote unity and inclusion, challenging xenophobic narratives. Political parties like the Economic Freedom Fighters (EFF) and community leaders are advocating for policies that protect immigrants' rights, highlighting their contributions to South Africa's economic and social fabric. Despite the negative impact of some political leaders and media outlets, a growing movement is working toward combating xenophobia. By promoting positive narratives and inclusive policies, these voices are beginning to shift public perception, reminding South Africans of the importance of solidarity and unity in a time of hardship. At the heart of xenophobia in South Africa lies a complex web of cultural misunderstandings. Immigrants, particularly those from neighboring countries like Zimbabwe, Mozambique, and Somalia, are often viewed through a lens of fear and suspicion, largely due to cultural differences and unfamiliar customs. Many South Africans feel that their cultural identity is under threat by the influx of immigrants. In a nation where historical divisions were entrenched by apartheid, there is a deep sense of cultural pride. The introduction of foreign customs, languages, and practices can be perceived as an invasion of space that South Africans believe is already scarce. These feelings of cultural anxiety often become intertwined with economic fears, where competition for resources magnifies perceived cultural clashes. While some cultural practices are misunderstood, it's important to recognize the vibrant contributions immigrants make to the country's cultural tapestry. From Somali spices in the kitchens of Cape Town to Zimbabwean music weaving through Johannesburg's nightlife, the influence of immigrants is undeniable. But these contributions can be invisible to many South Africans who don't interact directly with immigrant communities, leading to a lack of understanding and respect. However, when communities take the time to engage with each other, prejudices can be broken down. Immigrant businesses are often embedded within local economies, providing services and goods that are essential. In many cases, mutual appreciation and cultural exchange can foster unity rather than division. Ultimately, it is these cultural exchanges, when South Africans and immigrants engage directly, that pave the way for greater understanding. Amid the struggles and tensions of xenophobia, there are countless stories of resilience, hope, and solidarity that showcase the strength of South Africa's people. In the heart of Johannesburg, we meet Thabo, a South African businessman who runs a thriving construction company. "When I started my business, I faced many challenges," he says. "But what I learned is that we need each other. The Zimbabweans, the Mozambicans, they're just like us, trying to feed their families. We can't let fear tear us apart." Thabo's perspective is echoed by Fatima, who runs a popular restaurant in Cape Town. Despite the frequent harassment and discrimination she faces, Fatima continues to serve both locals and tourists, creating a space where different cultures can come together. "Food is something everyone understands," she says. "It's about bringing people together, showing them that we all have something to offer." These everyday heroes, both South African and immigrant, are the backbone of hope in a society divided by xenophobia. They are part of a growing movement of people who believe in the power of connection over conflict. An organization called Ubuntu Together has been working tirelessly to bridge the gap between communities, organizing events where South Africans and immigrants can come together, share meals, and celebrate their common humanity. Through dialogue, collaboration, and mutual respect, organizations like Ubuntu Together are creating spaces where empathy can flourish. This grassroots movement is growing, one conversation at a time, and is showing that xenophobia is not an insurmountable force. It can be dismantled by the efforts of people committed to unity. While the road to healing is long and filled with obstacles, these voices of resilience remind us that change is possible. From local businesses to community-led initiatives, South Africa's future can be shaped by the strength of its people coming together. There is hope on the horizon, and it starts with small acts of kindness, understanding, and solidarity. South Africa's journey toward overcoming xenophobia is far from complete, but by fostering cultural understanding, creating economic opportunities for all, and engaging in open dialogue, the nation can bridge divides. It is in these everyday acts of unity, by recognizing our shared humanity, that South Africa can truly fulfill the dream of a rainbow nation. The path forward begins with each of us choosing empathy, respect, and togetherness over fear and division.